Welcome to the Travel Squad podcast, where adventure meets inspiration. We're your hosts. I'm Brittany.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Jamal. Together we explore international destinations, hike epic national parks, and share unforgettable travel experiences with you, one passport stamp at a time.
Our mission is to inspire you to travel by showing you how you can make it work no matter your budget, schedule, or experience level.
We bring you along so that you can laugh, get excited, and start planning your own trip.
So grab your ticket and your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And get ready to embark on a new adventure with us around the globe. Hello, fellow travelers.
Hey, squaddies.
Hey, squaddies.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Travel Squad podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Sherry Howell, the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Medjet.
In this episode, we go over how a membership for as low as $99 could save you over $100,000 when you least expect it. Medjet is a premier global medical transport, travel security, and crisis response membership. We learned a lot about medical transport in this episode, including how they arrange to bring you home from a hospital abroad, how many of their members end up using the service on domestic trips, and how it's actually a lot more affordable than you might think. We also talk about why this membership is a major benefit for corporations to offer their employees who travel for work purposes.
And Kim, you mentioned how specifically they can bring you home from a hospital abroad, but Medjet also builds between the gap of your travel medical insurance, which will life flight you in any situation to a hospital. But sometimes that hospital, really the terms and conditions of insurance is they just need to take you to a hospital. It may not be a good one. Once you're at a hospital, Medjet will then transport you with that membership to a hospital of your choosing. So that is also very important, bridging that gap between your travel medical plus having something to get you that treatment in the right spot. And Medjet has been around for quite a while, but is starting to gain a lot more traction and popularity. They have become so popular as of late that big name companies that you have heard about are starting to write and recommend about Medjet, such as Forbes, The Points Guy, USA Today, Travel and Leisure, Wall Street Journal, and so many more. And so with that, let's welcome Sherry to the Travel Squad podcast.
ABC Wednesday, October 9th.
Y'all complain all day. We want books. We want paper towels in the classroom. Bet you want raises, too.
I'm still waiting on the paper towels.
Abbott Elementary returns with the new season.
We asked the district for more after-school programs. They gave us $50 for class pets instead.
Critics cheer. Abbott Elementary continues to be one of the funniest and most beloved shows on TV.
What y'all doing out there?
Taking bribes.
Proud of y'all.
Abbott Elementary, season premiere Wednesday, October 9th on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Hello, Sherry. Welcome to Travel Squad Podcast. We're so happy to have you joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. We have a lot that we want to get into with Medjet, membership benefits, who needs it, what it is, and all that. But we like to start out every guest interview first by going way, way back. What is one of your earliest travel memories that kind of ignited your passion for travel and led you to where you are today?
Oh, when I was little, we traveled back and forth to my grandparents' ranch. So I loved airplanes. And when I finally graduated college and lived in New York, I was working at MTV and we got to travel a lot. And you're finally making some money that you can spend your money on travel. And I think my first trip to Paris, still one of my favorite cities, was where the travel bug really, really bit me. So, I mean, I lived in New York, but then to go to Paris, which is another really big city, just was like every big city in the world I need to see now.
Oh, I love that. I can totally see you fitting in Paris too. You fit the bill.
Thank you.
So I imagine traveling in places like Paris, international, and going to all of these big cities. There's a lot of things that are great about travel, but that can also go wrong with travel. We've done episodes in the past about staying safe, avoiding pickpocketers, health things. Brittany here is our resident nurse who is a travel nurse when we're traveling. We brought you on to talk about Medjet. Medjet is a very interesting company that when you need it, you need it. But I don't think a lot of people know really what it is or what the benefits are, maybe until it's too late. So can you tell us just a little bit about what Medjet is?
Sure. Medjet is a private membership program, and it provides air medical transport if you find yourself hospitalized anywhere more than 150 miles from home. We also have a membership that provides 24/7 security and crisis response. That's actually before I even started working here. I discovered the Medjet Horizon membership, and I had just gotten back from Bogota, Colombia, and Mexico City by myself, and really had no idea who my mom would call if I just disappeared, while I was down there. And now my mom would call Medjet.
Yeah, interesting. So, as we're preparing for this episode, I'm kind of thinking through what kind of travelers could really benefit from something like this. And you said solo traveling in Colombia. Is solo traveler one of the biggest type of customers that you all service?
No, we really do all types of travelers. We have thousands of companies and organizations that we protect, including the NFL, anytime they play their football games overseas. We do thousands of families and individuals. Anybody who travels, for MedJet Assist, which is our medical transport membership, that tends to skew a little bit, over 50. I think over 50 people are a lot more acutely aware of their health and their vulnerability while traveling. I think for families, it's the parents that are a little bit more concerned about a child getting really sick or really hurt in a foreign country and the toll it would take being stuck there to be with your child, or $30,000 to $200,000 to move the child home back to your own hospital.
Did you say $230,000?
Yes, it's always been in the range of $30,000 to $180,000 since I got here 6 years ago. But last year we did one of our most expensive transports. That was from Malawi, and that one topped $198,000. Since then, we've had a couple over the $200,000 mark.
Wow.
Well, I think you could just see right there with the actual cost of what it would be in an emergency to be life flighted out or have to go anywhere, the value of the subscription. And you mentioned before you started working with Medjet, you had found out about the Horizons subscription. You also just mentioned Assist. Can you give our listeners a little bit of background of what the difference is between the both of them and why somebody may want the Horizon versus just the Assist?
Oh, sure. So Medjet Assist is our basic membership. It comes with air medical transport benefits. If you are hospitalized and require continued hospitalization, we move you to the hospital of your choice at home. Insurance doesn't do that. The medevac benefits of travel insurance are really only geared to get you to the closest hospital capable of treating you. Medjet is what gets you to a hospital at home just because you want to be treated at home. Both the Medjet Assist membership and Medjet Horizon membership do that portion of it, the transport portion of it. Medjet Horizon is transport plus security and crisis response. That's a 24/7 line staffed with security experts, and it can be anything from advice to boots on the ground security extraction if that is what is required. And that can respond to acts of terrorism, disappearance, like I said, in Colombia. It can respond to natural disasters, things like hurricanes, political threat, which there have been a lot of calls from members. There's a lot of demonstrations and riots going on in several countries. It covers kidnap. These are awful, so bear with me. Kidnap for ransom. If you're the victim of a violent crime, I don't think I would wish dealing with the police in a foreign country in a foreign language after being traumatized on anybody. It's very nice to have somebody dispatched to help you deal with the process of that, get you, safely on a plane back home, if that's what you want. And so those are, the two different types of memberships. One is the medical transport only, and the other is the medical transport plus security response.
Logistically, how would something like that work? And of course, it's always going to be case by case, but I'm thinking back to my parents because my dad is originally Lebanese. My mom is American. during the Civil War, they were living over there. And of course, they had to wait for the American Marines to do evacuations of American citizens to get out. But as a hypothetical, in a war situation like that or civil unrest, how would you guys even get on the ground to help evacuate members should they need to?
Well, level 4 countries, do not travel countries, are not covered. If you should not be going to the Ukraine right now, any place that the US government says, because they're not going to help either for the most part. And so, don't go to Iran, don't go to Iraq. Haiti's a level 4 right now, and we can't in good conscience send a crew in if you've traveled and the government has said don't go.
So this would be more for like a country where it was okay to go, and then while you were there, some civil unrest started to happen.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. And how long has Medjet been around? Can you tell us a little bit about the origin of Medjet?
Oh, sure. It began a little over 30 years ago, actually, and it was created to fill the gap. Founders understood that there was a gap between where insurance evac left off, which is at the foreign hospital that they deem capable of treating you, and where people wanted to be, which is back home in a hospital that they know and trust with doctors that they know and trust. So understanding that there was that gap in the medical transport benefits, they created the Medjet program. It was the first of its kind in North America, membership program strictly to get hospitalized members moved home. And I like to say it was the first and the best.
And you've had significant growth in the last 30 years as well.
Mhm.
I imagine costs of getting home on your own is a primary factor fueling the growth, right? So Medjet today, 30 years later, what kind of a sprawl do y'all have with like number of customers? Have you seen it become more in demand in more recent years, or what's fueling the growth of people interested in this service?
Yeah, COVID was really interesting in that one of the most difficult things about, marketing or educating people to a product like MedJet is they think that they're covered by insurance. And I think a lot of people don't read their policy. They don't understand their benefits. Coming out of COVID, I think it was twofold. A lot of people were far more aware of the vulnerability of their health while traveling, as well as being able to call somebody to help in an instance. Like we had added pandemic coverage literally right before COVID. What are the chances of a global pandemic, right? But yeah, so it's really nice to have somebody to call. And I think that understanding that vulnerability coming out of COVID, you had all this pent up travel demand. We actually kept our advertising budget where it was during COVID because you had all these people home, not able to travel, dreaming of travel. And so, they got a lot better educated as what insurance covers, what programs like MedJet do. And I think really now understand the value of what we do. Coming out of COVID, we broke every sales record in our 30-year history for 18 months straight, especially with the Horizon product. So people get it now.
I feel weird saying congrats on the growth, being that it was driven by COVID, but that is great. And you make a really good point that people are just more aware of the need for travel health insurance or membership benefits like this and the things that really can go wrong when you're somewhere else. And we're talking a lot about international. How much of this do members use benefits in the US? Things can happen anywhere, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I would say 98% of people purchase MedJet for the big international trip, but because it also works domestically, they end up using it back home. I have a testimonial on our website, and it's the cutest woman, and she had taken her family to, I think it was India, and they were going to be gone so long that they purchased annual memberships. And they got home, nothing happened. They went skiing over the Christmas break, I think in Aspen, and she got whacked by a snowboard. I mean, it just broke her in half, And so the last of her friends, her husband had gone home, taken the kids home because they had to go back to school. The last of her friends was coming to say goodbye, and she's crying. She's like, I can't believe I'm stuck here. I can't believe, like, I'm going to be here for another month. I want to go home. And her friend goes, too bad you don't have that Medjet thing. And she's like, well, we do. We bought an annual membership. Why? And she's like, because it works domestically.
Oh, wow.
So they called us and we got her moved home, and she was so elated. So yeah, 98% buy it for the big international trip, but honestly, about 50% of our transports every year are domestic.
Wow.
It's also why we cover so many businesses, is they understand that it can suck to get, stuck in a hospital 3 states away from your family as much as it does halfway around the world.
I have heard rumors that when you are brought back from another country for medical reasons, it can often be on a private jet. Is that a rumor, or is there any truth to that?
There's a lot of truth to that. Most of our transports are air ambulance, and each of those, if you're hospitalized, a nurse and a paramedic, a critical care flight nurse and a paramedic will show up at your bedside in the foreign hospital. They will gather all of the medical reports, all of the information. They'll deal with the discharge. They will pop you in an ambulance to go to the airfield. They'll load you into a air ambulance it's basically a mobile ICU. And they will not leave your side. We might change pilots out, but they will not leave your side until you are checked into your hospital bed at home, and they have transferred all of the medical reports and anything that happened on the flight to the new attending physician. So it's very white glove. It's very bedside to bedside.
I'm just wondering, what's the longest flight you guys have done?
Any of the ones from Australia, Asia especially, because right now we can't fly over for Russia or the Ukraine. So those have gotten very expensive and a little bit circuitous. So those are probably the longest ones. I will say that, for some of those longer hauls, if we can safely and comfortably transport somebody via commercial carrier, let's say that you broke your leg, you broke a hip, if it doesn't require an air ambulance for stability, we will put you in a flatbed business class with a critical care flight nurse, not just an escort, but a critical care flight nurse. I always say that's faster with better snacks. But we will do that if it's safe and it makes sense and it's quicker. Otherwise, it's a flying ICU. The longest ones, gosh, the one from Malawi was interesting because it actually was much quicker because of the crew timeouts and everything. There was one crew was dispatched to go get them. And then there was another one that took the person from Malawi to Turkey, and they did what's called a wing-to-wing transfer, where they just, on the tarmac, moved the person from one flight to another and then took off from there. So those could take a while. They're small planes. They have to land, they have to refuel, they have to crew change.
Well, everything that you're talking about sounds amazing. And I think as people are listening, they could really see the value of that in an emergency versus, you're right. Like, let's just say you're hiking in the Swiss Alps and you fall, break a leg. Yeah, maybe you're air flighted out. And sure, maybe the hospitals are good there, but you hit the nail on the head. Somebody wants to be home. This will get you back to the US. And it sounds like as a membership, something like this would be expensive. But as I'm on your guys' website, I'm putting in family. So for me and Brittany, and it will ask you how many years you want the subscription, just putting in a year to include international travel. And this is with the Horizon, so crisis response. Around $600 for 2 people for a year. And with everything that you get, I find that to be extremely reasonable. So what you're saying sounds like really, really high end, but it's really affordable.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the entertainment business, and when I got here, I would explain to all of my friends, what Medjet does, especially the security stuff, because I know that's the one. And I would always make them guess. I would influence the jury a little bit in that, it's like this and it's security response, and how much do you think that costs? Now, keep in mind, we all pay $3,000 a year to belong to the Soho House, just to drink really expensive drinks. So really, how much do you think? And they always guess like $10,000, $15,000. And when I say $600, well, for an individual, it'd be like, around $450. They're flabbergasted. So it really is incredibly affordable. One of my favorite sort of subject lines in email marketing is $99 versus $200,000. Because we have short-term Medjet Assist memberships that, they cost $99 for an 8-day protection. And that can come in really handy. It has the same benefits as an annual membership. And if you're looking at a $200,000 medical transport because you really just want to get to your home hospital, that's a pretty good bargain.
I would encourage anyone listening who's intrigued by this to really go to Medjet Assist, because you said it just now, you can even get short term, but you can really pick and choose what you want. Do you want an international and domestic, or just domestic? 90 days of travel at a time abroad versus like 180 or full 365 if you're living. You can really cater it to get a much better price than what we said, which I still think is outstanding.
Mhm.
I do notice, of course, if you do an annual subscription, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, which seem to be the option, it
Mhm.
will limit you to so many days abroad. Of course, you get to choose that. So as I'm looking at the 90 as a great example,
Mhm.
obviously, if I'm somewhere and something happens on day 91, it wouldn't come into play because I was gone longer than that. But let's just say I come home literally for one day, and then the
Mhm.
next day I'm gone. It
Mhm.
re-kicks back in and you have your coverage. You just can't be away from your home address for longer than 90 days in that example.
Correct. You have to touch base in your home country at least once every 90 days. You could travel, what is that, like 360 days a year? You
Mhm.
just have to touch back every 90 days. We have a lot of expats we have a lot of snowbirds, people who own a house down in Mexico, Costa Rica. They go for 5, 6 months at a time. We have an expatriate 180 that allows 180 consecutive days. Expat 365 is for people who are going to move away for a year and not come home at all. We have student and faculty membership that costs the same amount as an annual family. It just allows a little bit of, extra, up to 140 consecutive days if your child's going to study abroad with a bona fide program, or if you're going to go, faculty teach somewhere, some free extra days.
I can see it also being useful for someone planning a round the world trip for, say, a year. They'll be gone. Or someone like Brittany who likes to go to the very edge of the cliffs for pictures when she's hiking in the middle of nowhere.
It always makes my heart drop. She will go to the edge of the cliff, and I'm always worried something's going to happen to her. So I'm about to be having a Medjet membership here pretty soon, just for situations
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh, I'm too terrified of flights to get that close. We just went hiking in Iceland and did that waterfall trail, and some of those drop-offs my son was laughing at me so hard because I literally was like leaned over almost sideways so that I could keep touching like the side of it.
I know
Ugh.
exactly what you were talking about. We were just in Iceland in July and we did that exact same height.
Yeah. I was the lady that was like this. Ooh.
How would someone go ahead and sign up and be a member? I mean, I mentioned the website. Is there anywhere else to enroll, or would it just be on medjetassist.com?
It's really easy to enroll online. Under age 75, we don't ask any health questions. There's no pre-existing condition exclusions. So we don't have that kind of window that travel insurance has sometimes, where you have to sign up, 10 days after putting your first deposit down. You can sign up to the day before you leave. And you can sign up online at medjetassist.com, or you can call our membership services department, mostly during working hours, 8 to 6 Central Time. We have a very robust membership services department. Every phone call could be a transport, and no phone call goes unanswered here. So you can call, you can ask questions. There's somebody here.
And since you mentioned calling, if somebody was to call and need to be evacuated for a medical emergency and life flighted out, how would something like that work? Just a quick call. Where are you? We're going to get the closest jet over to get you out of here.
Well, for clarity, we don't do life flights. We don't do medical evacuation. So, we're not the people who are going to, use the helicopter to get you to the hospital. But once you reach the hospital and you're going to be stuck there, you're admitted inpatient, they want to keep you, then people call us. I mean, people call us on the way to the hospital just to let us know what's going on. And sometimes the transport team will start looking at where all of our affiliates have their aircraft, things like that. But the second that you are admitted inpatient is when your benefits really, really take effect.
And from that moment, when they make the call and say, I've been admitted, I want to be brought home, how long does it typically take for your team to get into action and bring them back?
Honestly, it really varies. And primarily, you have to be stable for transport. So we do need to connect with the attending physician. We need to get a medical report. The air ambulances are flying ICUs, but it's not like they have surgical capacity.
Of course.
So you really want to make sure that it's safe to put somebody up in the air. That can take some time. So it's very difficult. I mean, we had a pro athlete, a baseball player, that bought Medjet for a trip abroad that he and his wife were taking. They took a really quick trip down to Miami the weekend prior to their big trip, and he slipped on the pool deck, popped one of his quad tendons, and as he tried to catch himself, he popped the other one. So he literally could not walk.
No.
Yeah, professional athlete. So, he called us. We actually had him home later that day. It was very, very quick. Something that's more complicated and further away that really is going to, this guy had 2 torn things. He couldn't walk. He wanted surgical repair by his own orthopedic surgeons. Something much further away is difficult to put a timestamp on, but as soon as we humanly can.
Well, that's amazing.
Are there any new benefits or planned rollouts coming in the next few months or year that you have envisioned for Medjet?
Not in the next couple months.
Okay.
We're always looking. The beauty of having a call center and every phone call, I'm the head of marketing. And if membership services is busy, the phone call overflows into, and either I'll pick up the phone, the CEO will pick up the phone, the COO. And I love it because you can talk to people. And so we really do try to understand how our members are traveling, what they need. We were the first company to add transport for COVID during COVID. Members who tested positive for COVID and were hospitalized, we were the first company of our kind that was moving them home.
That's really great to hear. We heard a lot of stories of companies that were restricting benefits and making sure you knew what was not included. So it's good to hear the other side, companies that actually care.
We added them at no additional cost.
Oh, that's great.
We are always looking to see how we can better serve our members, better provide for our members' security. And,
It's really interesting to me because I think Kim mentioned earlier that I'm a nurse, and recently I've been seeing an uprise, at least in California and San Diego, of COVID cases. And I've heard recently of people going on vacation and catching COVID and having to isolate. So with Medjet, would you be able to then transfer home and do your isolation at home?
No, that's not a sustainable business model. There were actually, there was a company that discovered that during COVID. You have to be hospitalized no matter what the situation is. The COVID benefits were if you were hospitalized and required continued hospitalization. Just because you had COVID didn't mean that we would not transport you.
Okay.
In the beginning, obviously, they were very, very strict. Once we had to get outfitted with the isolation pods that were required, it took a minute for the crews to be trained on proper use of that. But once that was in effect, then we were allowed to bring a hospitalized patient home, despite the fact that they tested positive for COVID, even though you couldn't get back into the country if you tested positive, because they were, medically contained, medically supervised, et cetera. But just testing positive, you can imagine you can't send a private plane for every one of those people.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
You wouldn't require a mobile ICU. It really is for people who are hospitalized and require continued hospitalization.
One thing I want to ask, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about businesses having this benefit. Do you see your everyday standard corporation investing in this? Or you mentioned sports, that makes total sense. What other types of businesses are coming on to the membership?
Anybody who sends salespeople, executives more than 150 miles from home. Duty of care is a serious responsibility of any corporation, and business travel accident policies have a lot of the similar restrictions that travel insurance policies have, in that, if they are going to provide medevac, it's to the nearest acceptable facility. Well, what's acceptable to the insurance company may not be acceptable at all to the employee. And that really creates a gray area on whether you're providing duty of care. I hate this story, but there was a school in Connecticut that sent kids abroad. They were protected by travel insurance. And one of the girls on the trip got bit by a tick and contracted tick-borne encephalitis, which they did not check for in the Chinese hospital that they took her to after she started, spiking a fever and things like that. Getting back into U.S. healthcare, it's probably the first thing they would have tested for. And so understanding that the family sued the school for $41 million for failure to provide duty of care, and it got appealed and upheld. It's $41 million.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's the level of exposure that a company can have as well. So anybody who's sending people traveling, whether it's international or more than 150 miles from home, are the types of companies that join Medjet.
That makes sense. And you said salespeople, but I work in marketing as well. I work for a marketing agency. And because we went fully remote after COVID, we're now trying a lot more to have in-person client visits. And so it's not just salespeople now, it's the solutions experts that are visiting clients. And I think that probably after COVID, a lot of other like conferences and trade shows are picking back up. Those companies sound like good candidates too.
Yeah. Anybody who's responsible for sending a traveler away from home is the type of company that should look into MedJet. And that's everybody.
Companies, individuals alike, because you've given so many different situations and examples of where things could go awry. And as travelers ourselves, we're thankful nothing has ever gotten too crazy, but you just never know what's going to happen in life. And MedJet seems like the perfect program for that, especially to give you the peace of mind to get back
Yeah.
home to where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of the MedJet membership, if it is purchased for an employee through work, is it works for personal travel as well. We don't disseminate between personal or business travel. I mean, classic story of once you get it, you get it. I have a neighbor who runs one of the largest lift production companies in the world. I mean, like those giant lifts, like warehouse lifts, the giant lifts that move the containers in the shipyards, things like that. And, for months, it was like, what is it exactly that you do? Like, what does MedJet do? And it wasn't until they had an employee on a vacation that had an issue down in the Caribbean that he called me and he was like, okay, what is this thing like? And he's not a member, but can you help? And we do fee for service. And, I was like, well, of course we can. But had you purchased MedJet for your employee, like I encouraged you to, then we'd be going and getting him for free. It wouldn't be the family paying. And I think it was the following Monday that he signed up almost every one of his staff that traveled, because it's a great perk in that it's a very legitimate business expense, but it also works for personal travel. A lot of the businesses will purchase it for the employee, and then the employee is allowed to call us and add their family at the extra $100 or something to cover the rest of the family.
That's a great benefit that businesses could list in their benefits package.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Oh, I have one more question. MedJet is not insurance. It's a membership and the benefits come from being a member, right? So on insurance, when you have a claim, your premiums tend to go up. You use the service. Next time the renewal comes around, you expect a spike. Is there anything like that with MedJet?
No, we don't have any claim forms. We don't have any out of pocket. Once you join, if you're transported, we handle everything. It is the same price year after year. I mean, unless we have like a little price increase, but that would be for everybody across the board. It's the same price. It does go up a little bit, and we do ask some health questions after age 75. But other than that, no, there's no claim penalty. There's not any claims. I can't tell you how many phone calls our transport team or the executive team gets from members that are trying to wade through just the ocean of paperwork that is the travel insurance claim from like the hospital and maybe some emergency evac, not our stuff, but the airlift to the hospital. And they're looking for the bill. And we try to explain to them that there isn't a bill. There is no bill. We handled everything, and they're flabbergasted. But it really is. It's zero additional cost to member if you're transported. And no, we don't keep track.
And is there any limit on, God forbid, you have more than one case in a year? Is there any limit to how many times you can use the benefit?
Yeah, it covers 2 transports per year. Let's say that there's a family, and this is off. I hate examples. I really do, because they're just so awful. But let's say there's a family of 5, right? And they have a van accident cruising around Iceland, and all 5 of them need a transport. We would do that. But that would be 5 transports in 1 year, but they'd be out of their transports for that year. Whereas if the husband went on a vacation and he injured himself and he got transported, and then one of the kids went on vacation, they injured themselves, they got transported, then that would be two separate instances and you'd be done for the year.
Got it.
I was going to say, you've made subscribers and members out of us three. I can assure you of that. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners just as well. But as we're kind of getting to the end of this, is there any last little bit that you wanted to say about Medjet that we haven't touched base upon?
I think the biggest challenge to getting people to really understand it is everybody understands travel insurance. They understand that it comes with medical evacuation benefits. But again, that is only to the nearest acceptable facility if you read the fine print. And they will only move you further if it's quote unquote medically necessary. And good luck proving that if you just want to go home because you want to go home. So, really, I would just encourage people to think about what type of travel protection you might need in the worst case scenario and look into Medjet because it's been in business for 30 years. It is an incredibly successful program, successful business, and that is for a very good reason.
Sounds like it. Is there anything like looking way ahead into the future of Medjet that you wish for it? Like, for example, you partner with major health insurances and it's included in every policy, or every person in America or the world has a policy.
Well, they've already told me that we can't get people from the moon.
That's coming soon. Space travel is right around the corner. I could tell you that.
Or the ocean.
They just send the first billionaire up for like a moonwalk.
I don't know if they did or if it's planned, but you're right. So the disclaimer will be earthly evacuations, not celestial.
Yeah, I do wish that more companies would look into it. I don't know about, packaging it because it's very different from insurance. So that's not something that we actually could do. But individuals and corporations really, again, just for them to be better educated about where their insurance coverages fall off and Medjet begins.
I'm glad we can help spread the word and educate people out there. You definitely educated us today.
Why, thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. You have taught us so much. You've really given us a lot to think about when we travel to destinations where we might be doing a little bit of crazy activities or risque activities, or, being the accident-prone followers that we have out there. I think that you have taught our listeners a lot in this episode. So thank you so much for being with us today. And Squatties, thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you learned some interesting facts today that got you thinking about travel safety a little bit harder. Make sure to follow us on all the socials at Travel Squad Podcast and tag us in your adventures.
If you found the information in this episode to be useful, or if you thought we were just plain funny, please be sure to share it with a friend that would enjoy it too. And as always, please subscribe, rate and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
Stay tuned for next week's episode. We have some more amazing adventures and tips in store for you.
Bye, Squatties.